Hello, dear listeners. Today, I would like to discuss with you one of the most essential aspects of human existence: memory. Specifically, we will explore in depth the phenomenon of memory gradually collapsing, namely dementia. Currently, more than 50 million people worldwide suffer from dementia, with approximately 10 million new patients diagnosed each year. In our country, there were about 840,000 dementia patients as of 2024. And this number is predicted to reach 3 million by 2050. These are not mere statistics. This is a reality we may all face, and a future our society must prepare for. Dementia is not simply forgetfulness that comes with old age. It is a terrible disease that gradually dismantles human identity itself. Memory is the most important factor that defines who we are. Childhood memories, precious moments with loved ones, knowledge and experiences accumulated over a lifetime. All of these disappear one by one due to the ruthless invader called dementia. French philosopher Henri Bergson said, "We are what we remember." This is not a simple metaphor. Memory is a core function of the human mind that connects our experiences, enables learning, and allows us to plan for the future. Without memory, we would have to live as if experiencing every moment for the first time. Modern medicine has achieved remarkable advances. Heart transplants, cancer treatment, gene therapy, treatments that were unimaginable in the past have become reality. However, we still feel helpless in the face of dementia. Despite decades of astronomical research investment, we have not yet found a fundamental cure. More ironically, the more we know about dementia, the more its complexity and inscrutability are revealed. Alzheimer's disease alone involves beta amyloid, tau proteins, neuroinflammation, vascular disorders, and genetic factors in complex interactions. Like countless threads tangled in a knot, trying to untangle one part makes other areas more complicated. In this limiting situation, we need a new perspective. When the scientific precision of Western medicine meets the holistic approach of Eastern medicine, new possibilities may open. In particular, the unique healing system called Hwalbiob, Korean traditional manual therapy, offers a new perspective on dementia. Hwalbiob is not simply a branch of traditional Korean medicine. It is an independent martial arts therapy system that views humans not as machines, but as living energy systems. The core principle is to maximize natural healing power by regulating the flow of key life energy. Through this audiobook, you will understand the essence of dementia, find methods for prevention and management, and above all, discover answers about how to maintain human dignity. We will also explore together how modern and traditional medicine can harmonize, and how science and spirituality can meet. Chapter 1: The Identity of Dementia. How Memory's Castle Crumbles. The term dementia derives from the Latin words de, away from, and mens, mind, spirit. It literally means a state where the mind has departed. Medically, it is defined as a condition where various cognitive functions, including memory, are continuously deteriorated in an acquired manner, causing interference with daily life. The important point here is acquired. Unlike intellectual disabilities from birth, dementia is a process where brain functions that were once normal gradually deteriorate. This is like a beautiful palace slowly crumbling over time. First, decorative items disappear. Then furniture is lost. And finally, even pillars and walls collapse. The World Health Organization defines dementia as a syndrome caused by brain disease in which cognitive functions such as memory, thinking, understanding, calculation, learning ability, language, and judgment are impaired. However, such medical definitions cannot fully explain the actual impact dementia has on patients and families. Many people confuse normal forgetfulness that comes with aging with dementia. We often meet people who worry, could my recent forgetfulness be dementia? However, there is a clear difference between the two. In the case of normal forgetfulness, we recognize that there is something we have forgotten. For example, we may not remember where we put our keys, but we know we are looking for keys. Also, with time or given clues, we can recover the memory. Oh, right, I left them on the shoe cabinet at the entrance yesterday. In contrast, for dementia patients, the memory itself completely disappears. They forget the existence of keys themselves, or even what keys are for. This is not simply being unable to temporarily access information, but a process where the information itself is permanently deleted from the brain. Neuroscientists explain this as a difference in metacognitive ability. Metacognition refers to the ability to recognize one's cognitive processes, thinking about thinking. Normal people know what they don't know, but dementia patients don't even know what they don't know. Dementia is not a single disease. Just as the term cancer encompasses various types of malignant tumors, dementia is also a group of diseases with various different causes and manifestations. Understanding each characteristic is very important for appropriate treatment and management. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form, accounting for 60 to 70% of all dementia. This disease, first reported in 1906 by German psychiatrist Alois Alzheimer, is characterized by abnormal accumulation of beta-amyloid protein and tau protein. Beta-amyloid accumulates in plaque form between brain cells, interfering with connections between nerve cells. Tau protein tangles inside brain cells, forming neurofibrillary tangles that block nutrient supply within cells. Through this process, brain cells die one by one and the brain atrophies. Vascular dementia occurs due to stroke or damage to small blood vessels. The brain accounts for only 2% of our body weight, but uses 20% of total blood flow, making it an extremely energy-consuming organ. Therefore, problems with blood vessels have fatal effects on brain function. Unlike Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia often begins suddenly and worsens in a stepwise manner. Function drops sharply with each cerebral infarction, with relatively stable periods in between. Lewy body dementia occurs when a protein called alpha-synuclein abnormally accumulates inside brain cells. It is accompanied by movement disorders similar to Parkinson's disease, with characteristic visual hallucinations. Patients often say things like, "There are bugs crawling on the wall," or "There are strangers in the house." Frontotemporal dementia is characterized primarily by changes in personality and behavior. Since the frontal lobe is the brain region that controls our personality, judgment, and social behavior, damage to this area results in drastic personality changes. People who have lived courteously their entire lives may suddenly use profanity or steal others' belongings. The brain consists of approximately 100 billion nerve cells, and even more supporting cells. These nerve cells exchange information with each other through connecting structures called synapses, and this network forms the foundation of all our mental activities. One neuron is connected to an average of 7,000 other neurons, creating a total of 700 trillion connections. Dementia systematically destroys this neural network. Initially, damage begins in the hippocampus region, which forms new memories. The hippocampus, named for its resemblance to the sea creature, loses its ability to convert new information into long-term memory when damaged. As damage gradually spreads, it affects language centers like Broca's and Wernicke's areas, the parietal lobe responsible for spatial cognition, and the frontal lobe that controls emotions and personality. In the final stage, even the brainstem that controls breathing and heartbeat is damaged, endangering life. To understand the progression process of dementia, we must examine how cognitive functions deteriorate in stages. This is not simply all functions declining simultaneously, but progresses with a specific order and pattern. In the early stage, complex cognitive functions are primarily affected first. Complex cooking or handling tasks requiring multiple steps becomes difficult. However, routine conversation and basic activities are still possible. Patients in this period are aware of their changes and may experience severe depression or anxiety. Progressing to the middle stage, basic cognitive functions also begin to deteriorate. They fail to recognize familiar people or lose sense of time and place. Language ability also significantly declines, making communication difficult. From this period, independent living becomes impossible, and continuous help is needed. In the late stage, even the most basic survival functions are affected. Swallowing food, controlling urination and defecation, and even walking become difficult. Communication becomes almost impossible, and most time is spent in bed. However, despite these general patterns, individual differences are very large. Some patients maintain language ability relatively long while only having severe memory decline, while others show personality changes first. This varies depending on which part of the brain is damaged first. Accurately diagnosing dementia is more complex than one might think. It's not a disease that can be diagnosed with clear test results like a cold or fracture. Dementia diagnosis relies on clinical judgment that synthesizes various tests and evaluations. The most important thing is clinical observation. Changes in the patient's daily living abilities, behavioral changes observed by family members, and results from medical interviews must be comprehensively considered. Sometimes accurate diagnosis is possible only after several months of observation. Chapter 2: Silent Destroyers, Causes and Risk Factors of Dementia. The most representative pathological characteristic of Alzheimer's disease is the accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques. These protein fragments are produced even in normal metabolic processes, but in healthy brains they are efficiently removed. However, with aging or certain genetic mutations, problems arise in this removal process. The process of beta-amyloid accumulating in the brain is like rust building up in the pipes of an old building. Initially, there's no major interference with water flow, but over time, the pipes become blocked, and eventually, the entire system is paralyzed. Similarly, in the brain, beta-amyloid interferes with connections between nerve cells and triggers inflammatory reactions, leading brain cells to death. If beta-amyloid accumulates in the spaces between brain cells, tau protein causes problems inside brain cells. Normal tau protein stabilizes microtubules within brain cells, helping nutrients and information move smoothly. This is like the role of railroad tracks. However, in pathological states, tau protein abnormally transforms and tangles together. This is called neurofibrillary tangles, which is like multiple vehicles causing a chain collision on a highway, completely paralyzing traffic. Tau pathology has a closer relationship with actual cognitive decline than beta-amyloid, according to emerging research results. While some people have many beta-amyloid accumulations, but normal cognitive function, areas with tau protein accumulation always show functional decline. This suggests tau pathology is closer to being a direct cause of dementia. Tau pathology is found not only in Alzheimer's disease, but also in various dementia types, such as frontotemporal dementia and progressive supranuclear palsy. These are collectively called tauopathies and are currently an area of active research. The brain uses about 20% of the blood pumped by the heart. An organ that weighs only 2% of the total body weight requires this much blood due to extremely high energy consumption. Brain cells continuously generate and transmit electrical and chemical signals using glucose and oxygen as fuel. Vascular dementia occurs when problems arise in this cerebral blood flow. Major causes include cerebral infarction, where large blood vessels are blocked, cerebral hemorrhage, where blood vessels rupture, and chronic ischemia due to small blood vessel damage. Of particular note is small vessel disease. Small vessel disease is a condition where small blood vessels in deep brain areas gradually deteriorate, appearing on MRI as white matter hyperintensities or lacunar infarctions. These small damages accumulate one by one, eventually affecting overall cognitive function. Vascular dementia is closely related to hypertension, diabetes, and smoking, making management of vascular risk factors very important. Fortunately, most of these are modifiable factors, so there's high potential for prevention through active management. About 5 to 10% of dementia has clear genetic causes. In familial Alzheimer's disease, mutations in APP, PSEN1, and PSEN2 genes are the cause, and people with these mutations almost certainly develop dementia, typically in their relatively young 40s to 50s. However, more important are risk genes. The APOE4 gene is a representative example. Having one copy increases dementia risk 3 to 4 times, and having 2 copies increases it 10 to 15 times. About 25% of the population has one or more APOE4 genes, so this is not rare. The APOE4 gene is known to interfere with beta amyloid removal, increase brain inflammatory reactions, and impair blood-brain barrier function. It also reduces resilience to brain trauma or infection. However, genes don't determine destiny. Research results continue to show that even with APOE4, maintaining healthy lifestyle habits can delay or prevent dementia onset. Genes are triggers, not bullets. If you don't pull the trigger, the bullet won't fire. Various environmental factors work together in complex ways in dementia development. These can be divided into modifiable risk factors and non-modifiable risk factors. Non-modifiable risk factors include age, gender, and genes. Age is the most powerful risk factor, with dementia risk doubling every 5 years after age 65. This is exponential growth. By age 90, dementia risk is 32 times higher than at age 65. Women develop dementia more than men, partly because women have longer average lifespans, but biological factors like estrogen decline also play a role. Estrogen has neuroprotective effects in the brain, so rapid decline after menopause can increase dementia risk. Modifiable risk factors are things we can change through effort. These include hypertension, diabetes, dyslipidemia, obesity, smoking, excessive drinking, depression, social isolation, low education level, hearing loss, head trauma, lack of physical activity and sleep disorders. According to a 2020 Lancet Commission report, properly managing these 12 modifiable risk factors could prevent up to 40% of dementia cases. This is a very hopeful message. Chapter 3. The Disappearing Self, Symptoms and Progression of Dementia. The most representative symptom of dementia is memory loss, but not all memories disappear simultaneously. Memory has a hierarchy, and dementia destroys it in a specific order. This is like a high-rise building collapsing floor by floor from the top. Episodic memory is damaged first. This is memory related to when, where, and what was done. Memory of personal experiences. They cannot remember recent specific events like, what did I eat for lunch yesterday? Or, who did I meet last week? Patients often complain, I can't remember what I did this morning. Next, semantic memory is affected. This is memory about general knowledge and concepts, such as an apple is a red fruit, or Seoul is the capital of South Korea. Patients gradually lose word meanings and cannot understand previously familiar concepts. They might say, I don't know what a refrigerator is for. What remains until the end is procedural memory. This is memory the body remembers. Skills and habits like walking, brushing teeth, using spoons. These memories are stored in different brain areas and are relatively well preserved. However, as the disease progresses, even this is lost, making daily life completely impossible. Interestingly, memory loss progresses in reverse chronological order. According to this phenomenon called Ribot's law, recent memories disappear first, while older memories last longer. Therefore, middle-stage dementia patients find themselves in the strange situation of vividly remembering childhood from 50 years ago, while completely unable to remember what happened 10 minutes ago. Language is one of the most important characteristics distinguishing humans from other animals. Dementia systematically dismantles this language ability. This process is like books disappearing one by one from a vast library. Initially, word-finding difficulties appear. They clearly have something to say, but appropriate words don't come to mind, leading to frequent use of pronouns like that thing or over there. This is like words being erased one by one from a dictionary. Expressions like, oh, that, what do you call it? You know, that thing. Increase. Progressing to mid-stage, sentence structure becomes simplified. They cannot create complex sentences and express themselves only in simple word order. Semantic errors also appear, confusing words in similar categories. They might call an apple an orange or a doctor a nurse. In late stage, echolalia or stereotype language appears. Echolalia is simply repeating others' words, while stereotype language is repeating the same words or phrases. They might continuously repeat rice, 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 or give the same answer regardless of the question. Eventually, meaningful language expression becomes almost impossible. Another major difficulty dementia patients experience is deterioration of visuospatial cognitive ability. This occurs due to damage to the parietal and temporal lobes, and is one of the symptoms causing great stress to patients and families. Spatial agnosia makes them unable to find familiar routes. They get lost in neighborhoods they've lived in for decades, and even inside their own homes. They become confused about the location of bathrooms or bedrooms. They might say, I don't know where our house is, or ask, where is the bathroom? Temporal disorientation makes them unable to distinguish what month and day it is, or whether it's morning or afternoon. Past and present become mixed up, leading them to look for deceased parents, or perceive their adult children as young children. They might ask, when is mother coming? Or say, I need to send the children to school. Constructional apraxia makes it difficult to draw simple pictures or assemble blocks. This can be easily confirmed through clock drawing tests. Dementia patients cannot correctly draw number placement or hand positions on clocks. When asked to draw 12 o'clock, they might crowd all numbers on one side or draw hands in wrong places. Executive function is a high-level cognitive ability to make plans, set priorities, and solve problems. This is mainly handled by the frontal lobe, which also gets damaged as dementia progresses. Executive function disorders have very direct effects on daily life. Planning and organizational ability deteriorates, making it impossible to handle complex tasks in order. When cooking, they cannot simultaneously prepare multiple dishes, or when going out, they cannot prepare necessary items in advance. For example, multi-step tasks like cooking rice while making soup and preparing side dishes become impossible. Attention division ability decreases, making it impossible to do two things at once. Taking notes while answering the phone or having conversations while watching TV becomes impossible. They can only concentrate on one thing, and when other stimuli come in, they become completely confused. Cognitive flexibility decreases, making adaptation to situational changes impossible. When their usual methods don't work, They cannot try other approaches and repeat the same actions. If a door is locked, they keep trying to turn the handle without attempting to find other entrances. Impaired judgment leads to dangerous decisions. They fall for scammer phone calls, eat expired food, or wear seasonally inappropriate clothing. Dementia doesn't just impair cognitive functions. Various mental and behavioral changes called behavioral and psychological symptoms appear. These symptoms sometimes cause greater suffering to patients and families than cognitive decline itself. Depression and apathy appear most commonly. Patients who recognize their declining abilities fall into deep despair. They lose interest in previously enjoyed activities and want to just sit blankly all day or sleep. They might say, "I don't want to do anything," or "I want to die." Anxiety and agitation are also frequently observed. Fear of not remembering things and anxiety about confusing situations persist. Sundown syndrome occurs where they become more anxious and restless in the evening. As it gets dark and activities decrease after sunset, they become more confused. Delusions and suspicion may develop. They think someone stole their belongings or believe family members are trying to harm them. This is a secondary phenomenon due to memory impairment. Since they can't remember where they put things, they reason that someone must have taken them. They might say, "My daughter-in-law stole my ring," or "My husband is trying to kill me." Aggression and violence may appear. In confusing and frustrating situations, they may show verbal or physical aggression. Resistance is particularly severe during personal care situations like bathing or changing clothes. This is due to feeling their privacy is being invaded and lack of understanding of the situation. Wandering is a representative behavioral symptom of dementia. They wander around without purpose, or say they want to go home while actually already being at home, but trying to leave. They might say, "I need to go to mother's house," or "I need to go to work," while trying to go outside. This can pose serious risks to patient safety. As dementia progresses to late stage, physical symptoms also begin to appear. This is because brain areas controlling movement and the autonomic nervous system become damaged. Gait disturbances gradually appear. Initially, walking becomes unsteady, and they walk with small steps. Fall risk increases, and climbing stairs becomes difficult. In later stages, walking becomes completely impossible, requiring dependence on wheelchairs or beds. Dysphagia develops, making swallowing food or water difficult. This increases risks of malnutrition and aspiration pneumonia. This is also why many dementia patients eventually die from pneumonia. They often hold food in their mouths or choke when trying to swallow. Urinary and bowel control disorders appear, making daily life even more difficult. This is not simply a bladder or bowel problem, but loss of brain's ability to control these functions. They cannot find the bathroom location or don't feel the need to urinate. Changes in sleep patterns also commonly appear. Day and night reverse. They cannot fall asleep at night and wander around, wanting to sleep continuously during the day. This occurs because brain areas controlling circadian rhythms are damaged, creating a great burden for caregivers. Dementia is generally explained in 3 stages: mild, moderate, and severe. However, this classification is for convenience, and individuals actually show very different patterns. In mild dementia, there is some interference with daily life, but independent living is somewhat possible. They have difficulty with complex tasks, but can perform basic activities. During this period, patients themselves are aware of their changes and may experience severe depression. They might complain, "I'm not like before," or "my mind doesn't work." In moderate dementia, daily life becomes difficult without help. Help is needed for dressing, bathing, and meal preparation, and going out alone becomes dangerous. They begin not recognizing family members and behavioral and psychological symptoms are at their most severe. This period is considered the most difficult for families. In severe dementia, they become completely dependent. Communication is almost impossible, and help is needed for all daily living activities. Most time is spent in bed, with high risk of death from infections or complications. What's important is that the progression process of dementia varies greatly among individuals. Even with the same diagnosis, symptom patterns, progression speed, and remaining abilities are completely different. Some patients have severely impaired memory but maintain their personality, while others have relatively preserved memory but severe personality changes. Also, musical ability, artistic sense, and emotional responses are often preserved relatively long. Musical memory is particularly known to last long. Even when forgetting everything else, songs learned in childhood are often remembered. This is because music is stored, distributed across multiple brain areas, and is closely connected to emotions. Emotional memory is also relatively well preserved. They may forget people's names, but often retain good or bad feelings about those people. Therefore, treating them warmly and kindly results in good responses from patients. These individual differences are very important considerations when caring for dementia patients. Individualized care must be provided by identifying each patient's remaining abilities and preferences. It's important for families to know the early signs of dementia they can observe. Early detection enables better treatment and management. Memory changes are the most common early symptom. Particularly, repeatedly asking about recent events, frequently forgetting appointments, or continuously repeating the same stories requires attention. Impaired judgment is also an important sign. Problems with money management, becoming easily deceived by scams, or increased driving mistakes fall into this category. Language ability changes should also be observed, frequently using that thing or this due to inability to find appropriate words, or inability to follow conversations. Mood or personality changes are also important signals. Becoming depressed, unlike usual, becoming more suspicious, or getting angry easily should be carefully observed. Difficulty with daily activities should also be checked. Having trouble with or making more mistakes in cooking, cleaning, shopping, and other previously well-performed tasks. Chapter 4: Medicine's Limitations and Frustrations. The reality of current treatments. Currently, there are only a handful of Alzheimer's disease treatments approved by the US FDA. The main drugs are cholinesterase inhibitors, donepezil, rivastigmine, and galantamine, and the NMDA receptor antagonist, memantine. However, just listing these drug names reveals the desperate reality for dementia families. Looking at how these drugs work, their limitations become clear. Cholinesterase inhibitors prevent the breakdown of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, strengthening neural signals involved in memory and learning. However, this is like increasing engine output in a car with a flat tire. It temporarily boosts performance without solving the fundamental problem. Memantine blocks NMDA, receptors to prevent brain cells from dying due to excessive stimulation. This is also a treatment focused on symptom relief that doesn't fundamentally stop disease progression. It's like bailing water from a house during a flood. Immediate damage can be reduced, but the fundamental cause, the crack in the dam, remains. An even more bitter reality is that these drugs have minimal effects. While clinical studies showed statistically significant effects, actual improvement that patients and families can feel is very limited. Having MMSE scores 1 to 2 points higher doesn't dramatically improve patients' quality of life. Often, drug side effects like indigestion, dizziness, and sleep disorders become bigger problems. Over the past 20 years, pharmaceutical companies have made astronomical investments in developing treatments targeting beta amyloid. This was based on the amyloid hypothesis that beta amyloid is the core cause of Alzheimer's disease. However, the results were a series of devastating failures. Secretase inhibitors were attempts to block beta amyloid production. However, clinical trials showed minimal cognitive improvement effects, and serious side effects like increased skin cancer incidence appeared. Amyloid aggregation inhibitors met similar fates. Failures continued in the immunotherapy field as well. Solanezumab and gantenerumab are representative examples. These were treatments attempting to remove amyloid from the brain, using antibodies against beta amyloid, but all failed in phase 3 clinical trials. Even aducanumab, controversially approved by the FDA in 2021, continues to face questions about actual clinical effectiveness. While amyloid plaque reduction was confirmed on brain MRI, patient cognitive improvement was minimal. Moreover, there are risks of serious side effects like brain edema and cerebral hemorrhage, limiting its use. Lecanemab, approved in 2023, shows similar limitations. It showed effects of slowing cognitive decline by 27% after 18 months of treatment, but absolute improvement is still minimal. In CDR-SB scores, it was only a 0.45 point difference. Annual treatment costs reaching $26,000 also create economic burden. With these repeated failures, questions about the amyloid hypothesis itself are being raised. Claims suggest beta amyloid might be a result rather than cause of Alzheimer's disease, or possibly part of a defense mechanism trying to protect the brain. As limitations of beta amyloid-centered treatments become apparent, treatments targeting tau protein are recently being researched. This is due to research results showing tau protein has closer relationships with actual cognitive decline. Various approaches like tau aggregation inhibitors, tau immunotherapy, and tau kinase inhibitors are being attempted, but haven't shown clear results yet. There's also risk of interfering with normal tau protein functions, requiring careful approaches. Treatments targeting neuroinflammation are also being researched. Methods to suppress microglial overactivation or block inflammatory cytokines. However, completely suppressing inflammatory responses can interfere with normal brain immune functions, making it difficult to find balance. As recognition grows that dementia is not a disease caused by a single cause, but a disease group where various pathologies work in complex ways, interest in multi-target treatments is also increasing. However, the safety and effectiveness of simultaneously blocking multiple mechanisms haven't been verified yet. For vascular dementia, treating the underlying vascular diseases is key. Actively managing vascular risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, and dyslipidemia, and using antiplatelet agents or anticoagulants to prevent additional cerebral infarctions. Blood pressure management is core to vascular dementia prevention and treatment. Research results show that maintaining systolic blood pressure below 120 can significantly reduce cognitive decline risk. However, excessively low blood pressure can reduce cerebral blood flow, requiring individualized management considering personal characteristics. Diabetes management is also important. Properly controlling blood sugar can prevent microvascular damage. However, overly strict blood sugar control can increase hypoglycemia risk, potentially harming the brain. Antiplatelet agents like aspirin help prevent stroke recurrence, but can increase cerebral hemorrhage risk, requiring individual risk-benefit assessment. Anticoagulants like warfarin are essential when atrial fibrillation exists, but require careful monitoring due to bleeding risk. However, recovering already damaged brain tissue is impossible. Brain cells cannot regenerate once they die. Therefore, even for vascular dementia, slowing progression is the goal. Fundamental treatment remains difficult. Research funding invested in dementia research over the past 30 years reaches tens of trillions of won. However, treatments actually helpful to patients have barely emerged. Pharmaceutical companies wander searching for blockbuster treatments, but patients still stand before a desperate reality. Ironically, as advanced medical technology develops, dementia patients receive increasingly inhumane treatment. Patients are viewed as management subjects rather than treatment subjects, and their human dignity is increasingly ignored. Medical staff show passive attitudes saying, "It's an incurable disease anyway," and families must fight alone in bewilderment. Even more bitter is the medical field's dual attitude. While conferences cry, early diagnosis is important and active management is necessary, when actually meeting patients, they only repeat, "Let's wait and see." They recommend expensive tests for diagnosis while having almost nothing to offer after testing. Medical staff actually know their limitations well. However, rather than acknowledging this, they try to show expertise by packaging things in complex medical terminology. They lack efforts to explain reality in simple terms. Patients and families can understand and find the best methods together. Chapter 5. The connection between mind and body, mental health and dementia. The relationship between depression and dementia has long been a controversial topic in the medical field. Whether depression causes dementia, or whether depression appears as an early symptom of dementia, or both, doesn't have a clear answer yet. However, one thing is certain: these two are very closely intertwined. Evidence that depression is a risk factor for dementia is quite solid. Depression patients have 2 to 3 times higher dementia incidence than normal people. And the more severe the depression and the longer its duration, the more risk increases. Late onset depression, in particular, has even higher dementia risk. Looking at direct damaging effects depression has on the brain makes this understandable. Chronic depression causes hippocampal atrophy. Continuous secretion of the stress hormone cortisol damages hippocampal neurons and also suppresses new neuron generation. This is like continuous acid rain, gradually killing a forest. Behavioral changes observed in depression patients also increase dementia risk. Social withdrawal, decreased physical activity, sleep disorders, and loss of appetite are all factors that negatively affect brain health. Depressed people want to stay home only, don't exercise, and don't eat or sleep properly. This vicious cycle further impairs brain function. However, conversely, depression may appear as an early symptom of dementia. It's natural for patients who recognize their declining memory to fall into deep despair. Awareness that "I'm not like before and my mind doesn't work" brings on depression. Anxiety disorders also have close relationships with dementia. Chronic anxiety creates continuous stress states that burden the brain. Research results show cognitive decline progresses faster in patients with generalized anxiety disorder or panic disorder. Anxiety particularly greatly affects attention and concentration. An anxious mind continuously tries to detect danger signals, causing attention dispersion and reducing ability to learn or remember new information. It's like being unable to perform normal activities in a house where fire alarms continuously sound. Dementia and mental health problems create vicious cycles that worsen each other. When cognitive function declines, patients experience deep frustration and depression, which again harms brain health and worsens dementia. Sense of purpose shows powerful protective effects in dementia prevention. People with clear life meaning and goals have markedly lower dementia incidence than those without. Positive effects of sense of purpose on the brain appear through multiple pathways. First, it provides motivation to continue efforts to maintain healthy lifestyle habits. People with things to do and goals take better care of their health. Research results continue showing that religious beliefs or spiritual practices help prevent dementia. This is not simply because religious activities provide social contact. Meditation and prayer can cause structural changes in the brain. Regular meditation increases hippocampus size and decreases amygdala activity. It also stabilizes the brain's default mode network, reducing self-referential thinking and worry. Religious beliefs reduce death anxiety and provide frameworks for giving meaning to life's difficulties. This reduces stress hormone secretion and improves overall mental health. Stress responses are very different between people who believe suffering has meaning and those who don't. Dementia is a gradual death process. Patients are physically alive, but mentally have already departed. Families must go through a long farewell process of gradually losing loved ones. Looking at policies or services dealing with dementia family suffering, most are premised on family sacrifice, taking it for granted that families should bear primary caregiving responsibility, with society only supplementing deficiencies. However, is this really reasonable? Dementia care requires professional, intensive care. Is it right to impose such responsibility on families without any education or preparation? Chapter 6. The Meeting of Eastern and Western Medicine. New Possibilities of Hwalbob. Hwalbiob literally means method of saving life. This is not simply a branch of traditional Korean medicine, but an independent martial arts therapy system with thousands of years of history. The core of Hwalbiob is viewing the human body as one organic whole and maximizing natural healing power by regulating qi flow. While Western medicine approaches the human body as a machine, repairing or replacing broken parts, Hwalbob views the human body as a living energy system, pursuing overall balance and harmony. This difference in perspective creates fundamental differences in approaches to complex, chronic conditions like dementia. The philosophical foundation of Hwalbiob is qi monism. That is, the view that all phenomena in the universe derive from one fundamental energy called qi. The human body also maintains life through qi action, and disease occurs when obstacles arise in qi flow. This shows interesting similarities with modern physics' quantum mechanical perspective. Einstein's formula that all matter is condensed energy, or quantum mechanics observer effect, where the observer's consciousness determines matter's state, align with the qi monistic worldview. In Hwalbiob, the human body is viewed as a microcosm. All laws of the macrocosm apply equally to the microcosm of the human body. Therefore, living in harmony with natural rhythms is considered the secret to health. The brain viewed from Hwalbob perspective is not simply a collection of nerve cells. It is a palace where spirit resides and a command center regulating qi throughout the body. Traditional Korean medicine expresses this as simjusinmyeong, meaning the heart governs mental activities. What's noteworthy here is that the sim, heart, in traditional medicine is a different concept from the anatomical heart of modern medicine. This means a functional system encompassing circulatory, nervous, and endocrine systems. In modern interpretation, it can be viewed as a concept encompassing the entire cardiovascular, cerebrovascular system. In dementia cases, Hwalbiob interprets this as insufficient essence due to kidney Chi deficiency. Kidney is the foundation of congenital constitution and source of life force, and essence becomes the raw material for brain marrow. As kidney Qi weakens with age, brain marrow production becomes insufficient, leading to memory and cognitive function decline. This perspective shows interesting connections with modern medicine's neuroendocrine theory. It aligns with latest research, showing that dysfunction of the adrenal hypothalamic pituitary axis plays important roles in dementia development. From the qi and blood circulation perspective, dementia occurs when qi and blood flow to the brain is blocked or insufficient, like river water becoming stagnant and putrid when blocked. When qi and blood stagnate, waste products accumulate in the brain and function declines. The core therapeutic principle of Hwalbob is regulating qi through the meridian system. Meridians are pathways through which qi and blood circulate, forming networks connecting organs and tissues throughout the body. While not yet fully explained by modern science, they show considerable anatomical correlations with nervous, circulatory, and lymphatic systems. In Hwalbob, dementia treatment is divided into 4 basic principles: Bosin Ikjong, tonifying kidney and benefiting essence; Hwalhyol Hwayo, activating blood and transforming stasis; Hudam Gegyu, transforming phlegm and opening orifices; and Ansin Jongji, calming spirit and stabilizing will. Bosin Ikjong means strengthening kidney qi to promote brain marrow production. For this, acupoints like Shenshu, Mingmen, and Taixi are used to supplement congenital original qi. In modern terms, this can be interpreted as effects promoting brain neurotrophic factor secretion and improving neuroplasticity. Hwalhyol Hwayo means improving blood circulation to supply sufficient nutrition and oxygen to the brain. Through points like Xuehai, Sanyinjiao, and Hegu, it promotes systemic blood circulation and particularly improves cerebral microcirculation. Haodam Gegyu means removing pathological products called phlegm to clarify mental activities. In traditional medicine, phlegm doesn't simply mean sputum, but all pathological secretions produced by metabolic disorders. Beta amyloid, or tau protein accumulation in dementia, can also be viewed as phlegm in broad terms. Ansinjongji means stabilizing the spirit and strengthening will. Through points like Shenmen and Yintang, it calms the mind and promotes emotional stability. One of Hwalbiob's most unique characteristics is the concept of transmitting the practitioner's qi to the patient. This means interaction at the energy level beyond simple physical contact. While not yet fully explained by modern science, several interesting hypotheses are being proposed. According to bioelectric field theory, all living beings have unique electromagnetic fields, and interactions between them are possible. Mirror neuron theory may also be related. Mirror neurons activate when observing others' actions, as if performing those actions oneself, potentially enabling transmission of emotions or intentions. Some scholars cite quantum entanglement phenomena. At the quantum level, instantaneous interaction is possible even between distant particles, which might explain consciousness or energy transmission. Conclusion: love beyond memory. Walking this long journey together, we come to question the deepest essence of human existence. When memory disappears and cognitive function declines, is that person still the same person? What determines human value? In Western philosophy, Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." However, seeing dementia patients makes us question this proposition. Do we not exist when we cannot think? Eastern philosophy offers different perspectives. From Buddhism's no-self perspective, there was never a fixed self to begin with. Everything is a continuously changing process, and dementia is merely part of this change. From a Confucian perspective, human value is formed within relationships: parent and child, spouse, siblings, friends. These relationships make a person who they are. Even if memory disappears, these relationships still remain. Modern relational self-theory also presents similar views. Humans are not isolated individuals, but social beings existing within relationship networks. Dementia patients' identity doesn't disappear, but is maintained in different forms. Ultimately, the most important thing we can do in the face of dementia is love. Even when memory disappears, love remains. Even when cognitive function declines, emotions remain alive. Love is situated at a deeper level than memory. Even when dementia patients forget family names, warm feelings toward them often remain. This is the power of love. Even when memory disappears, traces of love remain. When individual memory disappears, community memory remains. As long as family and friends preserve and pass on memories of that person continues to live. Our genes contain accumulated experiences and wisdom of ancestors. Even if individual memory disappears, traces are passed to descendants at the biological level. The Bible provides deep comfort and hope in the face of suffering like dementia. God's love remains unchanged, regardless of our abilities or memory capacity. The pain of dementia is temporary, but the glory God has prepared is eternal. Memory loss on this earth will be replaced by complete restoration in heaven. Through this audiobook, we have broadly examined everything from the scientific reality of dementia to human suffering and new possibilities of hope. While acknowledging the limitations of modern medicine, we explored new possibilities presented by holistic healing methods like Walbiob. Most importantly, dementia patients are still precious beings bearing God's image. Even when memory disappears, their existential value never diminishes. How our society treats them will become a measure showing our society's true character. Dementia is not individual misfortune, but humanity's common task. It's also a deep human-level problem that cannot be solved by scientific and technological advancement alone. True solutions can be found when Western medicine's precision meets Eastern medicine's holistic approach, and when cutting-edge technology harmonizes with warm human compassion. Even when memory disappears, love is eternal. Even when cognitive function declines, human dignity remains unchanged. Beyond all pain and loss on this earth, complete healing and restoration await. May God's abundant blessings be upon all who practice love silently with this hope. The Lord heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147 verse 3. May God personally comfort your broken hearts and bind up all wounds. If this audiobook was helpful, please share it with more people. Also, please subscribe to our channel and leave good opinions or suggestions in comments anytime. We will continue to visit you with beneficial content about health and healing. May God's grace and peace always be with you and your families. Thank you.